Okay, let's kick things off with a question that might just make you look at your Netflix queue a little differently.
I'm serious. Could that show you just binged, the one you can't stop talking about, actually be harmful? It's a pretty wild thought, but it's at the center of a debate that's more relevant right now than ever before.
I mean, we are just swimming in a sea of stories, right? From streaming shows to blockbuster movies to everything on our social media feeds. They make us laugh, they make us cry, but what if they're also shaping us in ways we don't even realize? And what if some of that shaping is, well, not so good?
To really get to the bottom of this, we need to hit the rewind button, like way, way back. Because this whole anxiety we have about our media, it's not a new thing. Not at all.
You're not going to believe this, but the first major thinker to argue that art could actually be a threat to society was the Greek philosopher Plato. And he was saying this over 2,400 years ago in ancient Athens. His warning has been echoing through history ever since.
So who was this Plato guy? Well, he's a giant in the history of Western thought. He was the student of the legendary Socrates and the teacher of the equally legendary Aristotle. His ideas weren't just random thoughts, they were his attempt to bring some truth and order to a world he saw as pretty chaotic.
Now, to understand why he had such a problem with art, you have to get your head around his biggest idea, the world of forms. Plato believed that the world we see and touch isn't the real world. It's more like an imperfect shadow of a higher, perfect reality. And in that perfect realm, there's the perfect idea of everything. Perfect justice, perfect beauty, and yep, even the perfect form of a bed.
And this, right here, is where art gets into some serious trouble. See, if our physical world is already just a copy of the real thing, what does that make a painting of something in our physical world?
Let's use his famous bed example to break it down. Step 1. You have the form, the perfect, true idea of a bed that exists in that higher realm. Step 2. A carpenter comes along and builds a physical bed. That bed is just an imperfect copy of the perfect form. Then step 3, an artist paints a picture of that physical bed. That painting is now a copy of a copy, which in Plato's mind makes it 3 times removed from the actual truth. Plato had a word for this, mimesis, which is just Greek for imitation. He basically argued that since art is just an imitation of an imitation, it's like a shadow of a shadow. It has almost zero claim to any real truth or wisdom. So Plato's problems with art were pretty clear. First, he thought it was a fake. But even worse, he thought it was dangerous. He believed art appeals to our emotions instead of our logic, which is a big no-no for him. He worried that watching sad stories teaches us to feel sorry for ourselves, and that watching heroes and gods misbehave makes us think it's okay for us to misbehave. Okay, so how does this ancient argument from a guy in a toga hold up against the stuff we binge-watch every single day?
This is where it gets really fun. Let's imagine for a second that Plato is here with us, scrolling through our streaming services. What would he make of some of the most talked about and controversial stuff out there?
Think about a show like Netflix's 13 Reasons Why. It was hugely controversial for its graphic portrayal of teen suicide. Oh man, Plato would have been horrified. He'd argue that forcing young viewers to wallow in that kind of despair could lead to a copycat effect, stirring up all these powerful emotions without offering any logical way forward.
Or what about the movie Joker? It gives this really sympathetic backstory to a super violent villain. Plato would see this as incredibly dangerous for our morals. By making you feel for the anti-hero, it completely blurs the lines between right and wrong. It almost makes his rage and violence seem, well, glamorous?
And then you have something like the book American Psycho, with its pages and pages of graphic, remorseless violence. For Plato, this would probably be the absolute worst kind of art. He'd say its nonstop cruelty doesn't just show a sick society, it actually helps create one by making us numb to evil.
Now, Plato's solution to all this was pretty simple: censorship. Just banish all the bad artists from his perfect society. But that's an idea that, for most of us today, feels really, really uncomfortable.
And for good reason. In modern society, we defend artistic freedom. We generally believe that an open marketplace of ideas, not censorship, is the best way to get to the truth. We trust adults to choose what they want to watch or read, and we know that sometimes art has to be disturbing to shine a light on injustice. So, you can see the huge conflict here, right? For Plato, the whole point of art was to serve the government and make good citizens. But for many of us today, the point of art is to question the government, to explore complicated truths, and to make us think for ourselves.
So, what's the verdict? Is Plato just an ancient thinker with outdated ideas? Or are his warnings still something we should be paying attention to in our super digital world?
Well, think about it for a second. When we talk about the dangers of misinformation spreading like wildfire on social media, or the impact of online hate speech, or how algorithms are designed to feed us emotionally charged content, we are wrestling with the exact same fears Plato had. He was worried about how powerful stories could bypass our rational minds and totally manipulate us. Sound familiar?
But our solutions have definitely evolved. Sure, censorship and bans still happen, but our modern toolkit is way bigger. We have things like rating systems and content warnings. The biggest change, though, has been the huge push toward media literacy and education.
And this reflects a massive change in philosophy. Instead of trying to shield people from art that might be dangerous, the goal now is to empower them, to give them the critical thinking skills they need to analyze and question all the media they consume.
It really shifts the responsibility, doesn't it? It moves it away from some state censor and puts it right onto the individual. The idea isn't to build walls to protect us, but to give every single one of us a better compass. And that leaves us right back where we started, facing the same deep, profound challenge Plato was grappling with 2,400 years ago. It's this timeless balancing act. How do we, as a society, encourage things that are good and virtuous, while at the same time protecting the absolute freedom to create, to question, and yeah, even to disturb? It's a question with no easy answer, and it's one that each of us has to keep on asking.